Welcome to the Bird's Eye View. This series is not meant to be a political or cultural commentary, nor is it a nitpick or comprehensive review. What we will be doing is diving into entertainment to try to understand its message, how well it accomplishes this, what we can learn from it, and how it might be improved. So let's look into it. In this video, we're going to take a look into the quality of Batman Begins. That is, how well did it express its message? First, let's talk about what the message really is very briefly. Now, we covered this in the last video, but we'll cover it here. The message basically is one of using your rightful anger at injustice, the bad things that have happened to you and to others, but using that in the service of real justice, true justice. And that justice is about harmony, things working together. And often, the way we do that is about giving second chances. It's about helping people when they've fallen. Because according to Thomas, why do we fall? So we can get back up. Raish, on the other hand, he believes more in the idea that justice is about vengeance. His idea is more about cosmic justice, that it is up to him to look at this centuries-long, thousands of years worth of back and forth between what he calls the decadence of society and trying to right that wrong, bring things into line with how he sees things. He is brutalistic and doesn't give mercy, unlike Thomas. And so the core of this plot, of this struggle, is having Batman, or Bruce Wayne in this case, in the middle of those two father figures. One talking about justice and mercy and helping things come into harmony, that is Thomas Wayne. And then on the other side, Rachel Ghul. And what he wants is justice in service of vengeance, of righting some sort of cosmic wrong, bringing things into his idea of balance. So now, of course, the question becomes, how well did it do at expressing this message? Now, first we'll talk about the successes, or the ways that it really did a good job. And to be honest, there are so many different ways that I could compliment this movie. To a great degree, it is a masterclass in meaningful messaging. Let's try and say that 10 times fast. The idea that I'm trying to say here is that on many different levels, whether that be the symbolism, or the quotes that they use in different ways from different people, it does an excellent job of showing the message as it progresses across time. The first way I want to spotlight that it does a great job at this is, like I said just a minute ago, about reusing quotations from different characters. I love this element because I think it does a great job of calling back the same types of themes, and also by the same team of person. Let me be more specific here. We have Rachel Ghul, which is on the side of vengeance, while at the same time we have Thomas Wayne's side of things, that believes more in justice and harmony. And so you have Rachel, and Alfred in particular, who voice this sort of team, this team that's pro-justice for harmony's sake. So to some degree, we have this sort of game here. We've got Thomas Wayne's faction on the one hand, fighting for Bruce's soul in service of justice, while on the other hand we have Rachel Ghul, who's fighting in the service of cosmic balance, when in reality it's just vengeance. Simple as that. Now, the quotes come in when we get to see Thomas Wayne's legacy affecting those on his team, or those around him. It helps to show that not only did he do a good job on his own, meaning he did the right thing and he moved forward and he was an example to others, but furthermore, his legacy impacted others across time, such that the things that they learned from him and from his ideals stuck in their mind. And that's why they're able to tell Bruce about his ideas. That's why they're able to voice his views, because of his legacy and of what he accomplished. The great example of his views being echoed across time is the quote, "Why do we fall?" That's said in the very beginning, and then in the climax, Alfred says it again.
Took quite a fall, didn't we, Master Bruce?
And why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up.
I wanted to save Gotham. I failed.
Why do we fall, sir? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
thereby showing the legacy that has happened, that he has put forth. Now this is in great contrast to Ra's al Ghul, where his ideas are not seen in the mouths of other people, they are only seen from him. And it shows that his legacy, or what he spreads, is not something that impacts others in a positive way. It is something that only he has, that lives inside of his mind. It shows that in effect, he's not had a positive impact. He's brought people down. And that's part of the symbolism that I like a lot. And on the topic of symbolism, that's the next thing that I really appreciate about this movie. There's so much excellent symbolism that echoes the deeper themes that we deal with. An excellent example of this is the juxtaposition between low versus high. This is something very interesting that I noticed at the beginning, and that is that we see Thomas Wayne interact with Bruce at his lowest point. He literally falls into the well at his lowest point. Now, Ra's, on the other hand, we see him interact with Bruce at the highest point. He brings him up to the mountain. And this I like very much because it shows how Thomas and Ra's react to people, how they accept people. Ra's accepts people at their highest point, when they're showing forth their ideals in the best way. But when they fall, when they do not succeed, he says, you stab them in the heart. That's what he says later on. When someone stands in the way of justice, you stab them in the heart. And that shows his lack of mercy. That shows the exact opposite of Thomas, where when Bruce falls and Thomas is around, he comes and he saves him. And what does he say? Well, he says almost the antithesis of what Ra's says. Why do we fall? So we can learn to get back up. So this juxtaposition, this contrast between the high and low, is one of the excellent points of symbolism that Batman Begins gives. Another great example that you can use is how Bruce comes to the party later on his birthday, makes everyone go away. Alfred, at the beginning of the scene, tells him not to disregard Thomas's legacy. And yet, he in effect does that because Thomas Wayne battled Ra's in the past economically. And the way he did that was by mingling with the high class, the elitists. He mingled with them in exactly the party that Bruce had on his birthday. And yet, what does Bruce do? He makes them all leave. So he in effect disregards Thomas's legacy in that moment by telling all these people to go away. And then Ra's confronts him. And what does he do? Well, after Bruce had disregarded his legacy, Thomas's legacy, Ra's then shortly after burns the whole manor to the ground. That manor acts like a stand-in for Thomas Wayne's legacy. And what does Alfred say when he's at his lowest, when Batman is at his lowest? He tells him that Thomas's legacy was much more than bricks and mortar.
What have I done, Alfred? Everything my family, my father built.
The Wayne legacy is more than bricks and mortar, son.
What Alfred is really saying is that Bruce is Thomas's legacy, and Bruce needs to internalize the ideals. And one last piece of symbolism that I like a lot is how at the end, after Batman has confronted and beaten Ra's, he glides down from the railroad track, and in the background is the Wayne logo and the Wayne name, showing to the audience that Batman has decided to go with the legacy of Thomas Wayne over Ra's al Ghul. This piece of symbolism is perfectly wrapped up in the end when he decides to rebuild Wayne Manor and wants to make it exactly like how it used to be.
What will you do?
Rebuild it. Just the way it was, brick for brick.
These that I've listed right here are some exceptional points that I liked a lot. However, the most important is the comprehensibility of the message. What do I mean by that? There is clearly a through line throughout this entire film that you can see that the characters talk about, that they grapple with, that is echoed in so many different layers, it's hard to even list out every way that it did right. So I would really encourage someone to go to my first video because you can see the beauty of how this movie arranges its message by how easy it was for me to show bit by bit, step by step, exactly the struggle that Bruce was undergoing, and furthermore, the deeper themes that he was grappling with. Without a doubt, the greatest strength of this movie is its message and how it shows forth its message through multiple layers, being very clear how it comes through different characters, and shows Bruce's struggle so well. And that's why some of my earlier points did not even touch the surface, did not scratch the surface with that ability this movie has. So that's why I encourage people to go to my last video to see that part. Now, lastly, I do want to touch on its flaws, however, and it does have a pretty big one, and that is Batman. The biggest flaw in this movie is that it is a Batman movie. What do I mean by that? So much of the actual message itself was leading Bruce to let go of his Batman persona, to let go of that in service of Thomas Wayne's legacy, in service of going back to his roots and acting more like his father did, using the influence, the prestige, all of his money and resources to help people in that way. Not in the way of a warrior like Ra's did, but in the way of a healer, like how Thomas Wayne did, but economically, how he helped people rise back up. That's how this movie was truly going to end, and they tried to do this middle road. They tried to go this middle route and have it both ways, for him to still be Batman, while at the same time, him using his father's company and taking it back over from these corrupt people and trying to be Batman and Bruce Wayne. That's what they were trying to do, but the issue with that is that so much of the struggle for Batman's soul, for Bruce Wayne's soul, was not choosing Ra's al Ghul's path, the path of the warrior. And he comes back in this guise of Batman, using so many of Ra's skills and using them in a way that was warlike, making it a war on crime instead of in the mode of his father, who was a healer, who used the economics to help heal Gotham. And that's the juxtaposition, that's the contrast between these two sides, these two teams. And yet, because it's a Batman movie, Nolan felt, or at least had painted himself into a corner from a story perspective. Even though from a thematic sense, it worked much better for Bruce to take over in Thomas Wayne's footsteps. That's where this movie was truly leading. Now, they might have been able to split the difference. They might have been able to do this if he had let Ra's live, because then he could say that in order for him to fight off Ra's, he had to use Ra's same tactics. He had to be on the guard. He had to still be Batman, because Ra's henchmen, his minions, could be all over trying to sow discontent and discord among the citizens of Gotham. That's a possibility. They could have done that. But if Ra's is truly dead, as Batman and as the rest of the series shows, then there was no need for him to continue as Batman, because it had been shown earlier on that Thomas had done a great job using his own resources as simply Thomas Wayne, not some alter ego, not some other superhero, but simply as a billionaire Thomas Wayne, with all of his resources, had done a much better job of revitalizing Gotham than Batman, than some sort of masked vigilante who wages war on crime. And so, ending it that way, of trying to split the difference between the two, muddles the message. It takes away from this message of choosing Thomas Wayne's legacy over Ra's mission, over Ra's ideas, because he ends up still using Ra's tactics. He uses his ideas, even like his smoke grenades, for instance, and his fighting abilities that he learned from the monastery where the League of Shadows was located. He uses all of those skills and continues to be a mirror copy of Ra's. Now, clearly he doesn't have the same ideals. Clearly he doesn't go nearly as far, but it's still the same mode. And that takes away from the message, the meaning of this movie, of using Thomas Wayne's legacy, of living in that perspective. Because Thomas Wayne beat Ra's. He won.
You attacked Gotham before.
Of course. Over the ages, our weapons have grown more sophisticated. With Gotham, we tried a new one, economics. But we underestimated certain of Gotham's citizens, such as your parents.
So, ending the movie where Bruce ends up co-opting a lot of the same tactics has a very negative or counterproductive message in the end. Because instead of it fully committing to Thomas Wayne's ideas, he still uses a lot of the same tactics of Ra's. So in effect, the biggest problem with the message, the bad guy of this message that's undercutting it, is Batman. If it had not been a Batman movie and it simply ended with Bruce Wayne deciding to leave all of that behind him and use Thomas Wayne's legacy. After all, he had defeated Ra's al Ghul. He had won, so he did not need that anymore. If he had needed it, like I said before, if Ra's had lived, then he might have needed it, but he didn't need it anymore. So he could have hung up the cowl and then proceeded in Thomas Wayne's manner, in his mode. And yet he didn't. So in the end, Bruce Wayne actually had to fight Batman, or the bad guy of this, for the message's sake. For the themes, the bad guy was Batman. This has been a look into the quality of Batman Begins, or how well it does at expressing its message. Next time we're going to take a look into what we can learn from Batman Begins, from a writing standpoint, from the message, and just as people. So I'll see you then.